Sure.
All right, so this is a Sunday morning. We are with Mr. Abhishek Malhotra, and as he just mentioned that we're recording when it's 12:05, so it's not really a morning, but it somehow still feels like a morning. It's a cloudy day outside. So as we had announced on our Instagram and Facebook page yesterday only, today Mr. Malhotra is going to be joining us. And a lot of you have sent us a bunch of questions also, so thank you for that. Please follow that space, and hopefully, this particular video will answer that. And do subscribe to the YouTube channel. You have shown us a lot of love over the last two videos. The Law Secure video reached 13,000 views, and so did Samannika's view. We reached a massive 10K on an audio podcast, which we did not expect. So, hopefully, you're going to share the same for this one also. So yeah, without further ado, welcome Abhishek. Welcome to the Calcutta Lawyers podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for the invitation and thanks for having me here. And I'll quite look forward to, participating, hopefully in an interactive session and sharing whatever little I can.
Great, great. That's perfect. So the very basic question that the most number of questions that a repetitive question that came from our viewers, that people do not have an idea of what a TMT practice is. So
Okay.
people just don't have a clue of what TMT is and what is it about. So just from a very layman's perspective, whom do you call a TMT practitioner, or what is it about?
Okay. So as the acronym suggests, it is technology, media, and telecommunication.
Hmm.
I chose this particular name because we've had a host of law firms, and of course, it's become a little more fashionable in the more recent past to have the law firm named around the subject matter or what you're dealing with rather than the names of the founders themselves. And given the fact that I'm a first generation lawyer, you always try and figure out what you want to do in a long term.
Hmm.
And I just thought that if I want to have more partners on board, whether those people who join the firm and then grow with the firm, or people who join, at a later point in time at a lateral level, it will always be easier to assimilate people if it is not a Malhotra and Associates,
Right,
as
right.
has always been like that. And there is also a perception connected with a surnamed used firm that it is, it's like a family run firm, and therefore we do not know what the future is. So I wanted to give that sort of feel, a professional feel to the firm itself. The other reason why I chose technology, media, and telecommunication, when I started out in 2008, uh, at that time I was not very sure as to what exactly it is that where am I headed, because
Hmm.
I had started out at after graduating from National Law School in '99. I did a year of criminal trial litigation to
Okay.
figure out whether I was cut out for that. While I learned a lot, but I decided that my interests lay elsewhere. And I was quite interested in intellectual property rights. So I had an offer for an LLM program from the Franklin Pierce Law Center, which is now part of the University of New Hampshire.
Mm.
And so I went there, got back, and joined Anand and Anand. I was there for about 3 years, then joined DSK Legal for about 4 years. And during those 7 years, I primarily was invested in intellectual property.
Okay.
I did get an opportunity at DSK to do non-IP work in the media sector,
Hmm.
and that's what really got me into the phase of deciding that I do want to pursue IP and non-IP aspects of the media.
Hmm.
So in 2008, when I set out on my own, I thought maybe this would be another IP and sort of ancillary services kind of boutique
Right, right.
offering that I would
Yeah.
create. But over a period of time, clients and God had other plans for me. And by the by, I got into the regulatory aspects of media, competition aspects, and therefore I realized that, of course, there was a touch point between media and technology to a large extent. When I got into the regulated space, because the media and broadcasting industries were regulated under the TRAI Act, and therefore I got a sense of getting into some bits of telecommunication, and that's when I decided that it's ideal to choose a name which is generic, which also describes the kind of services or the at least the industries that I am servicing, and
Mm,
then let's go. So 2008 August is when I set out on my own, but it was not until 2009 that I finally decided on this name.
mm.
So yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. So, just to give the viewers a sense of what Mr. Malhotra is speaking about, I failed to introduce him. I should have done this at the outset. So, Mr. Abhishek Malhotra, he's a founding partner of a TMT law practice. Now, TMT particularly is a vast domain, or it offers a very different kind of a practice as that of the conventional practices that we as law students, especially from government law colleges, see. He's a seasoned lawyer at that, and he deals with intellectual property, commercial dispute resolution, and uh, primarily with the subject areas of technology, media, and telecommunications, which is the acronym TMT. So, and he has achieved a lot of things. I'll leave links to Mr. Malhotra's LinkedIn profile and how to get in touch with him, or where you can read, and learn more about him in the description box below. So go through that, and hopefully you get a sense of what he actually does. So yeah, so back to Abhishek. Abhishek, while doing a bit of research on you, as you said that how you actually ended up picking up the TMT practice, or coming into this particular field, I also came across two particular names, and that is purely because they did a particular. I think they did two or three videos with Law Sikho, and I was speaking to Ramanuj, and Ramanuj suggested their names for this particular podcast also. One is Shruti Dwivedi Sodhi, who is also a partner at Khaitan Legal Associates, and another is Jehan Shroff, who is an associate partner at Khaitan again. So both of these people have also, as far as my knowledge goes, they also practice in their practice is very similarly based with that of yours. So TMT as a particular, for example, as you said, as a trial lawyer, a criminal lawyer, a person who is, let's say, from the government law college Bombay, or the universities that are there in Calcutta, or in maybe in a Rajkot, or not the NLUs, they look at practice, or they look at law as a career to very basic specific domains. uh, might be a criminal practice, or a civil practice, or maybe there that's it, or a corporate sector, and they don't have that knowledge. So when I say that, sir, kindly expand on what TMT is. What I am gauging at is, just explain to me as a first year law student, that what do I do as a TMT law practitioner?
Sure. So, and I get this question quite often, even from some of the colleagues who are working with us,
Yeah.
and or during the interviews. Look, um, I'm dividing the practice of law broadly along two uh, paths, or two sort of buckets. One bucket is when you tend to specialize in, or you're doing more of a particular kind of subject matter. Either you're a tax law expert, or you're an IP law expert, or you are you get into domains of real estate, and so those are all subject matters, right? The other bucket is where you decide that you want to service particular types of businesses.
Hmm.
Now, uh, not that there was a conscious decision around this to go into the TMT sectors. I just mentioned to you as to
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
came about.
Hmm.
But when you say you're a TMT lawyer, or you say you're a media and entertainment lawyer, as the case may be, it is the whole body of laws as they apply to these sectors. So let's take up the media, because that's where, as a firm, we are strongest on. Within the media space, there's films, there's television, there's radio, there's music, there's now, of course, the digital domain with OTT. If you extend that scope to a certain extent of using entertainment loosely, even sports and gaming comes within that scope. So what is it that is of relevance to these people, to these
Mm-hmm.
industries? Certainly intellectual property rights, and primary among them being copyright.
Mm-hmm.
There is of course an element of trademarks where branding comes in,
Sure.
etc. Then there is some of these aspects are regulated. So television is regulated, radio to a certain extent is regulated, and in the regulated spheres there are set of regulations that the government evolves either by way of legislation or by way of rules or by way of guidelines. So then let's assume that I'm advising a television broadcaster in the regulatory space. I need to know the TRAI Act and what it is that is the power of the TRAI to regulate this particular sector.
Mm-hmm.
Then it is just not be the TRAI Act. It will be regulations that are framed under the TRAI Act, under Section 36 of the Act, or on read with Section 11, where it will set out a body of that. If you have to carry out your business as a broadcaster, you can't give your channels directly to a consumer. You will not have a direct relationship with the consumer. There will be an entity which is there between the broadcaster and the consumer, which is known
Right.
as the delivery platform operator, like a Tata Sky,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the agreement is between the broadcaster and Tata Sky, and
And
back to
then,
back between Tata Sky to the consumer,
mhm.
right? So this regulated scenario that I can only offer through a DPO is governed by and set in stone by the TRI regulations. Then the question will come up: can I offer my channels at a particular price? How can I package my channels, etc.? All that is governed again by regulations and tariff orders. There
Mm-hmm.
is a maximum retail price for a channel that needs to be declared by the television broadcaster. So there's a host of the regulated scenarios. In the OTT space, there is really, when you say that are you regulating the OTT space, then that will amount to regulating the internet. But that's really not the case.
Right, right.
Though an attempt is being made currently to do so. Then there is the IT rules that have come out in February 2021, which have
Mm.
been a subject matter, a lot of debate and litigation. So there is a regulated scenario. Then, of course, at the heart of any commercial transaction is contract law. So you'll have to be conversant with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then there would be, so for example, today a film producer is wants to do a film. There'll be multiple contracts. They will do what we refer to as above the line and below the line. There is a certain budgetary allocation that is made to a film. You say, okay, fine, most of the costs are going to go into the actor, the lead cast, etc., the director, and then you have the technicians, etc., who get a certain. So that's all contractual. Some of these aspects also get impacted by what is the industry practice in a particular industry, and you learn that on the go when you get more and more experience in a particular area. Then, so let's assume that the film producer says, look, um, usually I will rent out a film studio for the purposes of my filming activity, etc. But it just seems that I'm going to keep coming back and again to this particular location.
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to buy this particular property,
yeah.
right? Real estate transaction comes in. So it's the whole host of laws as applicable to all these three sectors. A lot of it is regulatory, a fair amount of it will be IP, but there'll be various others. And of course, and there is dispute resolution services, there is, recovery matters, etc. So it's a whole host of services that you offer.
So it is based on it's oriented towards what the need of that
The client
particular
is.
client. Yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely.
so it might involve a lot of things. Fine.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So how much of what you're doing
And I'm
today?
sorry, I just so I'm coming in again.
Hmm.
It's very possible that there is an allegation of a PMLA violation.
Right,
So
right.
there's criminal law also coming in. So as I said, you are then a generic lawyer
Hmm.
who is able to offer services in a more directed manner because you begin to understand the business requirements of the client and the commercial necessities, and then you fashion your your relief, or your advice based upon your experience and your knowledge as a lawyer.
Right. This reminds me of a particular lecture that I had seen on YouTube of the Stanford Business School. And a particular lawyer had come in and he had delivered a lecture, and he had said that while dealing with clients, you forget what your education is, what you specialize in, and what your expertise in. If he needs to buy a tube of paste or soap or something, you should be the first person that he calls. So whatever the requirement
Correct.
of that client is, that's perfect. I don't think I don't think practices such as this can be curated in a course, uh, because it, as you were saying, that it involves so many things together. You just learn on the go, right? Because my question,
Yeah.
my follow,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, no. So you're right. I mean, you can study individual aspects of this.
yeah. You can do a
Uh,
course on IP.
um,
You can do a course on, yeah, but right.
no,
So how?
technology laws or whatever it is, but I don't think that there is really, because one, for example, one aspect of this is M&A transactions.
Hmm,
But
hmm,
so you can study the nuances of company law, and study how M&A transactions are being carried out as a practical sort of seminar course. But it won't be easy to curate and create a course that is
yeah.
dedicated towards this.
Right, right. So I'm going to do another thing, which is going to irritate you a bit. Every time you use an acronym for our students, I'm going to ask you to expand on it.
Of course,
Think, what is an M&A?
mergers and acquisition.
Fine. All right.
So
So
yeah,
this is just because I'm going to be bombarded with a lot of comments
no,
later.
no, of
So
course, by
yeah.
all means, yes.
Okay. So my following question would be that how the education that you've had in, not in your school but in your college, in terms of your education in law, how much of that is integral in the practice that you're doing today? Why am I asking you this question? Is because the people seldom take that leap of switching into a commercial or a corporate setup from a criminal litigation. I practice criminal law in the High Court. I have thought about switching my career into a separate field of law 100 times, and I've thought. Then again, I've told myself, no, the 3 years that I've done, I've been slogging in the courts. I've been carrying so many briefs and so many things. So I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stick to this, even though every now and then I just take up a book, and I can understand my interest going somewhere else. So now that you are where you are, and we are looking at you, how much of the education that you've had in your school or college impacts what you're doing today?
So I'll preface that answer with just a kind of a salutation to, as I said, clients and God. That I'm very lucky to be at the place that I am. Yes, of course, there is hard work. Yes, of course, there is perhaps uh, s- trying to service the clients for what they need, and that's the reason why we've been able to reach where we are.
Yeah,
But having said that, it is not often that opportunities do come to all the lawyers in possibly the same measure that I have been fortunate to get. And that's the reason why I've been able to broad base the offerings that I've been able to make to my clients. That's just a kind of preface there. But to answer your question, when I was my first or second year, one of my seniors,
and this was where,
I National Law School, Bangalore.
right, right,
So I heard one of my seniors tell someone, in the library, and that's something which is stuck into my mind ever since. That law school may not teach you what the law is, but it will certainly teach you where to look for it.
right, right.
That's
That's
the hallmark
perfect.
of a good law school, right? And those are the tools that they give you, which hold you in good stead forever
Yeah, yeah.
throughout your career. So I think National Law School certainly did that for me. That it opens up your horizons to the manner in which you approach, studying or case law or how to resolve issues or problems. It did give challenge us to look at the same problem through different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
If it let's assume that it is a problem in let's say contract law, is there something that you can apply as a principle from any of the other laws that you studied in order to reach the solution that you want to achieve? So
Right.
that's the the just a thinking process itself. And then yes, the research skills where you should look for the law, what you need to do sort of to take things forward. So that's from law school, and certainly it's a skill which continues to help me even today. So yes, what I'm doing today to a large extent is directed and helpful from the point of view of what I learned there. When I went to do my LLM in the States, that uh, literally opened up the very basic aspects of the seeds that had been sown in National Law School to a much larger canvas.
Mm.
Certainly, it gives you a great exposure in interacting with international students, no doubt about that. It gives you an exposure of another jurisdiction, but the methodology for approaching fundamentals is what really set it apart from even my experience at National Law School.
Right. Right.
The clarity that you need as a lawyer on fundamentals, and you need to keep going back to that again and again, even when you are addressing a complex problem, is something which is extremely important, and that's something which continues to hold me in good stead.
That answers it. I think that answers the question. Okay. Okay. Uh, Fine. I was actually expecting that you will tell me कि no नहीं ये सब नहीं matter करता college में छोड़ दो जो भी whatever you've learned it doesn't matter you learn on the go. But anyway, I think there lies the importance of your education in colleges. All right. I'm gonna go to the questions. All right. I'm gonna ask you a few random questions. You're not gonna be probably making a lot of sense out of it, but this has a lot of relevance. So, first
Yep.
question that came in yesterday was, what is the book or books you have given most as a gift and why? Or what are one to three books that have greatly influenced your life?
Interesting. So, what are the books that I've given away most as gifts? Um, it is not only because, and I'll tell you why I'm again prefacing this answer. It's not only because of the motive that I'm going to attribute to it, but I genuinely felt that these are the books that people will not read in their usual course. These are not bestsellers.
Mm-hmm.
These are not books that uh, in the normal course people will talk about because the publisher is also not like a penguin or whatever. But if someone does dedicate time to these small books, there's a lot that possibly they can learn from these books about life in general and how to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
So now the ulterior motive that I'm coming to. These are two or three books written by my father.
Okay.
He's a retired civil servant. He finished, he retired in 2009, and thereafter kind of found his calling in writing, and
Mm-hmm.
he's very inspired by the Gita. So he has come out with books where he selected about 100 shloks from there. He's also a trained classical singer, so he put those shloks to different rags, and the book contains a CD for those 100 shloks sung by him. And the written aspect of that book is the 100 shloks, their exact Sanskrit translation,
Mm-hmm.
and one paragraph on what his takeaway from that shlok is. So that was one book, and the other one was on Bhagavad Gita and management. He also has an MBA degree from Leeds University, so he kind of married aspects of the teachings from Bhagavad Gita to the management world. And a lot of your clients have these internal policies where they do not accept any gifts, whether it is Diwali or otherwise.
Hmm.
But everyone that I sent this to, no one said no to accepting it because it was a book, and most people who read it found it to be quite illuminating. So those were the most often sort of gifted books, only primarily because around Diwali you send it out to so many people, so therefore
Yeah, yeah.
we able to get that. In terms of the book or books that have most impacted me, uh, I would say that in I have been fortunate to get bits and pieces of the message from the Bhagavad Gita from my grandfather and from my father, and then of course reading it myself. So if there is one single book that I can really
That's the
say that
Gita.
has influenced me, then it is the Gita.
Hmm. Okay. And do we find the book that the books rather the set of books that you're talking about written by your father? Do we find it on the marketplace, as in the
I
on
think it
Amazon?
should be available on Amazon. I can possibly send you the links for
Fine,
that.
fine. So I'll attach a link in the description box below
Of
also.
course. Sure.
Okay. So next question. Again, not going to be very regular. What is the cheapest tangible thing or object that you have bought that has rendered overwhelming value for money? I have rephrased this a bit. Yeah. What is the cheapest tangible thing or object that you have bought that has rendered overwhelming value for money?
Mm, Possibly the desk that I'm currently working on.
Fine, fine, fine. There you
I
have
got
your
it in
answer.
2009. It has stood the test of 13 years. It was a very, very reasonable thing that I got a local carpenter to make for me.
Okay.
But it is utilitarian and
Serving
I'm
the
very happy
purpose.
with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fine. Now a bit difficult questions. Failure, favorite one. How do you look at failure? Deal with it. Maybe a low point that not a lot of people know about. So this is five questions clubbed into one. Talk about failure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct. No, no. So I think, I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I tell them that look, it's very important to fail because if you don't fail, you will never ever learn. I mean, there's a lot of learning from failure, very frankly.
hmm,
Not that you should consciously go out looking for it. No one likes to, actively engage in activity that will lead you to failure.
yeah,
But it's just to to have this sense of a little bit of a risk-taking ability, where if you don't take that risk, then you are not doing anything different from what anyone else is likely to be doing. So I think it's extremely important. It builds character, and I don't think people should shy away
yeah.
from going down a path which could lead to failure. I mean, of course, as I said, you consciously will not embrace it, but yes, it could lead to failure. So therefore, don't just worry only because it is likely to
Hmm,
fail.
hmm.
I have had my fair senses, shares of failures, even along the path of this journey with TMP law practice. Some wrong decisions, some decisions taken much earlier in time to when I ought to have taken them, having impact on me as a professional, on the firm overall, on at a personal level. But
No, but if there
and
was
I've
one,
learned something or the other I've learned from that.
no, if there was
And
one, because this actually makes this particular segment extremely interesting. If you could just expand on one particular such event or
yeah, so I'll share that. I and possibly for people who are let's say first generation lawyers who don't have lots of money to keep financing their failures, or whatever their
yeah, yeah, yeah,
however they want to
yeah.
go ahead in life. So I think around 2015 or so, 15, late 15, is when, on an indication from a couple of clients that we were likely to get more work and that we should broad based our offering, bring in more people, open more offices, etc. On just that verbal, not even a commitment, I went ahead and expanded from just Delhi to Chennai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, Lucknow. Added about 6, 7 cities in a span of about 6, 7 months.
Mm.
And that was the time when things like legally India and bar and bench were just about sort of taking off. So it was great to have those reports, and TMT law practice, assumed national
Yeah, I've
significance,
read
and
that article
things
also.
like that. It
Yeah.
just exactly. So it just gives you that high, and you take things forward. But those verbal commitments didn't come through, and
Mm.
within a year, I realized that I had just overcommitted to such an extent that it was time to roll back. And then the question is to whether you accept your failure, you accept your defeat, or you keep plowing on that, thinking that okay, chalo, next month maybe this will come in or something else will happen. So that led me to take a decision to merge with another practice, and from just TMT, I merged with another person in Delhi, and we became Arthe Law, and very soon thereafter we merged with Bharucha and Partners. And then of course
Mm-hmm.
I realized that it was not a decision that was made considering the right set of facts, etc.
Right.
And we I had a discussion with the partners there, and we figured out that the best way of doing this is to this part ways, because things were not working out for either of us. And in any partnership, if you're able to realize that it's not working and get out in a span of 1.5 to 2 years, I think that's have we both parties achieved perhaps the least kind of
Damages.
damages, so as to speak, and got into our respective spaces and have continued.
Right, right. Well, that's very interesting. Okay. From the smallest investment to the biggest investment that you have ever made. What is the biggest investment that you've ever made?
Biggest investment is this firm. I mean, that's, I would say, on a professional side, of course.
No, no.
Personally,
This
yes,
is
your
not a
family,
this is
etc.
not a professional question at all. We are not looking for professional answers at all. This is a very general question. If you are saying that this firm is your biggest investment, we'll take it. But
Hmm.
if it
No,
is
no, I'm saying
something,
you can make that distinction in your life as to what is your biggest professional investment and what's your biggest personal investment. So for me, the firm, of course, because of the fact that I've founded it, I've kind of tried to grow it to a certain level.
Mhm.
The personal and professional meet to a large extent. I mean, that's a very thin line that would separate the professional and the personal aspect of it. Uh, but if one is to say that only give me an answer which is purely personal, then of course it's family. If it is a mix of professional and personal, then it's the firm.
All right, all right, I'll take that. Won't really much on that. All right. What is your spirit animal?
What is my
Spirit animal. See, these are the questions that you're going to get from our audience.
spirit animal?
Yeah. If there was a spirit animal that you might have had in a Harry Potter world, maybe, what is your spirit animal?
Mm, okay. I think something that would exhibit the characteristics of an elephant.
So, elephants are
Uh,
extremely smart. Uh, they're extremely tactful, and they move in teams. They're protective of their
yeah,
families. So, yeah. Is that the
and
reason?
uh, and they, and of course, unlike the one highlight of the failure that I had just mentioned, largely they do not move with too much of speed. They're
Yes, yes.
at least
Cautious.
when they're cautious to a certain extent. They have a risk taking appetite, but that's they are not rushing into anything.
Right, right.
So yeah.
Wow. It's a great answer. Okay. What would you do if you had 1000 crore rupees? What would you do if you had 1000 crores? Do you have a target of how much would be enough for you to make on a monthly basis? So this second question doesn't apply to you. I take that back. What would you do if you had 1,000 crores? The first thing that comes to
Hmm. Okay. So first of all, as having grown up in a middle class setup, your first approach towards anything will be to ensure your security,
mind.
to
In
ensure your
terms of financial
security from a
security.
financial security for yourself and for your family.
Hmm.
So I don't think that that'll I'll end up spending even a fraction of what you're giving me. But if I have that kind of money, um, after having taken care of the security, I will probably. So there are two things that I can do. One is that I have a it's a kind of an ambition or a goal. Once these financial aspects are taken care of in terms of security, to either go down the path of academics and teach,
Okay.
or and on this one, I am not like 100%. I mean, if I were given a preference as to become a teacher or a judge, I would prefer to become a teacher. But yeah, that's one of the things that is there in the horizon, that I could possibly become a judge. But I prefer to be a teacher. So academics is where I want to head. Now, how does that get sort of figured out with the money aspect? One, because academicians are usually quite underpaid. I need to sustain my lifestyle and my family, etc. So I need that. But yes, if I were to, and these are scenarios. So if I were to do that, I would invest um, in infrastructure that would not only help me continue to do what I'm doing, which is, let's say, teaching.
Hmm.
If I am to be to continue in the law firm stroke practicing sort of phase, then today, a lot of what you want to achieve is driven by what what clients you have, how much you can market yourself, how many good people and talent you can get into your firm. So perhaps I will invest that in making the firm bigger, in doing things that I would otherwise not be in a position to do for the firm. Yeah, I
You,
think off
you've
the
just
cuff, this is all possibly I can answer.
you just justified your spirit animal, sir. You just
Yeah,
justified it.
correct. I realized that by the end of the answer.
All right. Um, how do you divide your time if you only had 2 hours a day to work? How would you spend that in doing what? So it's a sir. It's not a. So the person who asked doesn't know about your work. So she has asked a very general question. But I think you got a hang of it. How do you divide your time in your how do you plan it out? Because while doing these podcasts, and I've also gone through a lot of biographies and interviews. I read a lot of interviews, and I see this is a common factor in all leaders or all trailblazers of any industry, that they really, sort of, there are exceptions, but they really plan, and they have a very niche sort of a specific method of planning their work schedule. So just a general question.
So, given the fact that my love lies in litigation,
Hmm.
and but I'm also managing a farm. Uh, the day I would love to plan it better,
Hmm.
right? But very often, uh, aspects of and since you litigate, you can understand that your day will get hijacked by just that one matter for which you're waiting. And the days you have 10 matters, they'll all get over by 11 o'clock. So it's very difficult to plan a day where there is litigation. Today, with the fact that we are doing this online, things have become slightly better. And what I try and do is see. So we've kind of brought in certain systems in the firm whereby, since I'm also the first port of call for clients, and the distribution of work happens through me, I'll need to know who's doing what. So there is a late night, early morning email circulated amongst all the colleagues in the firm as to what their deliverables for the forthcoming day are.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that I know who's free for what kind of work and who can provide what assistance. We try and schedule calls and or meetings and or hearings in a manner that they are not in conflict with each other, but sometimes that
The
happens a lot.
clash, yeah. Yeah.
So as I said, so the point is, a typical work day largely goes unplanned, but there is certain aspects that one wants to achieve in a particular day. I set it out in like a to-do list, where I tend to get up a little early in the morning, and I engage, spend that time in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, one takes stock how much of it you've been able to achieve and what you have not. The other challenge in being a firm of our size, and which is endeavoring to grow, every month or every 6 months or every quarter or whatever, is that there is a lot of stuff that is fluid. And because of the fact that the value that at least we try to offer to the clients is the turnaround time needs to be great. You need to be accessible at any point in time. So that sort of disrupts your schedule completely. Anyone can pick up the phone and say, look, I want this to be done and in such and such timelines. So uh, you possibly can't, to my mind, compare a business, like, let's say, running
Right,
a law
right,
firm,
right.
which has both lit and non-lit aspects to it, with a regular business which is led by leaders that are management sort of a thing. And I admit I am not one of the greatest time managers. In fact, a lot of the stuff that I'm able to do on my own is, I attribute it completely to the fact that I have a great partner in my wife. She's not a lawyer, but she handles so much of the stuff of the firm, and of course, in addition to her responsibilities at home, that she handles HR, admin, finance. A lot of my troubles are kind of wished away. I don't even know how things happen, sort of with what magic wand they are getting taken care of. So that helps me a lot. She's much more planned. She's, kind of. It's very easy for me to fall into a plan because she's made it and she's thought of a lot of those things. So
Wow.
that's what it is.
I think that's great. That's great. Because I really struggle in, talking to my parents, or because I'm a first generation myself, and both of them have been in service since I remember. And also to the people who are close to me, it is so difficult for me to make them understand this. See, my timeline is generally not decided by me. It is generally decided by the court or the clients, and I have to show up. So yeah, yeah, it's great to have a partner like that, sir. So great. Oh, all right. This is an interesting one. Have you ever thought of going off the grid? For example, the person has written an example of Bill Gates, where Bill Gates keeps on saying that every year he takes a week or a month, I don't exactly remember, off, and he goes to some island and he reflects and whatever. So, do you ever think of getting off the grid? No phones, no contact, nothing.
The thought process is always there, and it's an amazing, idealistic place to be in. What I try to do is that, even though I can't completely go off the grid in terms of not having access to the phone or to the email, but when, uh, typically speaking, the last week of December, when courts are also off and people are also in their
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, New Year type of zone, and hopefully there are no crises really hitting us. That's the time that one wants to spend at a place where network is patchy, if not absent, and and you do things that you want to do at your own pace. You relax, you unwind. So and often when you are doing that, you do get some bits of flashes of what exactly you want to do, even in terms of your career, or
Right.
how you want to implement a particular system. So yes, I think it's extremely important for everyone in whatever measure that they can achieve, have some unwind time.
Mhm. Okay. Next, if you had the ability to create an advertisement which would be run across, this is a big question already. If you had the ability to create an advertisement which would be run across all newspapers, social media, TV channels for one day, free of cost, what would that advert say? So this is a way of asking what would your message to the world be? I think it's a shorter
Mm-hmm.
question. Yeah.
What would your message to the world be? Hmm.
No, but through an
I
advert.
don't know whether.
It has to be
Yeah,
through an
I
advert.
know. Yeah, no, of course. No, so of course it has to be something which
Widely
where
circulated.
perhaps the creative input will either be done by me or someone else. But yeah, the message that one wants to send across through an advertisement, mm, it's what I try and practice that, and it's a very just two words. It's just be happy. That's it.
I think that's a great answer. Be happy. Okay. Okay. What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student about to enter the real world? And she has quoted this. What advice should they ignore? That's a great question. I think a lot of people will look forward to this.
Hmm. Be confident of your abilities because you will realize once you do enter the so-called real practical world as to how much you have learned from your parents, from your school, from your education, um, and never ever be hesitant to ask or learn. What advice to ignore?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I've never given that kind of advice. So I don't know. So I've not thought about it. So I don't know what advice it would be
Fine, fine, fine.
to what you should ignore.
Fine, fine.
Perhaps the advice to be ignored. I mean, and it could work both ways. Is that you know run after the money is certainly not something that one should look at. Um, as a professional, as a lawyer, first run after knowledge. Money will automatically follow.
But sir, as a as a first generation lawyer, and I do not come from a family of money per se. Uh, we are also are a very middle class family, and I have seen around me, not to put down anybody like that, but I have also seen a lot of my friends, both from college and also colleagues, who have, you know, as they say that the grass is always greener on the other side, and they have it all. They have the opportunities to do that struggle that we were just talking about, and something which is funding them from behind, which is a great, and they're lucky to have it. That is where the thoughts of reaching a place where money is not going to be a problem, and I can earn a lot of it, and it's never a question that comes in, and it keeps on somehow tingling at the back of my mind that I have to work for money. I also have to earn money in the process, and not only do the litigation, study, and do all of that and not earn money. So, but then again, people like you have always told me that don't run after the money. Money will follow. So, how does that really work? Because I can ask you this question from my stage is because you've seen so much. So, how does that really work?
So I'll say this as I said again, and not everyone is fortunate. But I started my career with a criminal trial lawyer where I was earning 2,000 rupees a month. Now, of course, in 99, uh, even in 99, you couldn't do too much with 2,000.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But the point is, I of course had the cushion and the comfort of having a home and my parents at least supporting me on my basic requirements, right? Uh, the question, and I realized after 1 year when I did leave that chamber and I went to do my LLM and all that stuff, that the reason why I did it is not the money. I did it because of my interests lay elsewhere. Though when I did come back from the LLM, I had the option of joining one office that was giving me more money versus another that was not giving me that much money. But the quality of work in the place which was giving me lesser money was better. Quality and the quantity both wise. So the attractive proposition, what I say when I say that you shouldn't run after the money is because your choice should not ideally be dependent upon the money. But that is my take, very frankly. Everyone has their priorities, and for someone, maybe money, even in the short term, may be a priority for whatever the reason. I'm not at all, I'm not passing a judgment on whether one should follow a particular a path or not, where which takes you to money or to work or whatever. Completely your individual choice. Completely
Mm-hmm.
your individual choice. If I were to give someone advice, I would say that if you have the choice, go
Mm-hmm.
after the work in the short term and then the money will follow.
That makes sense. Okay. Just a couple, a few more, and then I'm going. I promise I'm going to let you go.
No, no, sure.
Um, so now that you're running, so now that he's, oh, so now that you're running a successful firm, what is his mantra of hiring people? So what do
Okay.
you look for while
So,
hiring?
yeah. So, of course, it will depend a lot on the specific requirement for hiring. For example, let's assume that the client approaches me, and that's happened a lot in the last 2 years during the pandemic, where the clients say, "Look, I want a seconded resource. You will be engaging the resource. We will be
So
giving
you're going to
all the
have to
work to the
expand on
resource."
this.
Yeah,
What is that?
that's what I said. So the secondment model is that a company does not want to hire someone full time.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
company will engage the services of TMT law practice and say, look, you provide us a resource on an exclusive basis. So all that that person will be doing is our work as if they were an employee of the company. But we don't want them as a headcount to our
Right. Not in the
numbers.
books.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, not in their books, no PF, no, all those employment related aspects that come in. That's not going to happen. We will pay you an X amount and you're responsible for paying that resource. So then there is a very specific ask. You will They will ask for a specific number of post qualification experience, maybe a specialization. So then one looks for those
Mm-hmm.
ingredients in that person. But having said that, of course, they could. Is it possible? It's possible that I would get more than two or three CVs that would match the criteria that the client is looking for.
Yeah.
Then, when it comes to choosing between them, the process of selection is very intuitive, and especially in today's time when we are doing these interviews online, it's a little more difficult to even gauge that or get that intuition, because when you meet a person, you're able to get a fair sense of that thought process on how that person thinks. So we carry out two levels of interviews. One will be a subject matter interview, which I may or may not engage in. I ask a person more generic questions, like stuff that you are pushing to me right now, just to get a sense of how that person is.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the thought process is that even though I'm taking someone for the purposes of secondment, that secondment will not go on forever. It could be
Mm.
6 months or a year. Thereafter, it's not as if I would like to, if it's a good resource, why should I let that person go? So in the course of that period, I would like that person to get into the fabric of the firm, do some things like writing articles, or engaging in certain other firm activities, so that then I don't lose that resource only because the secondment is over. And if I want to keep that resource, then I would like to assess from a personal level as to what that person's work ethic is, what's the background, where they are headed, what's their level of ambition. So one takes into consideration all of those things. But it's, as
Okay.
I said, there's no real mantra to it. It's a very intuitive process.
Okay. Okay. What is Mr. Malhotra's take on the tech space? Does he think that there is room for automation in the legal industry? Uh, huh. And if he could also, so I'll club this question also. So Mr. Malhotra, if you could also talk about artificial intelligence and the blockchain technology or similar technologies which are coming in, and whether that might impact the legal industry.
No, so any kind of tech development, to the extent that it impacts business, will impact legal industry because of the fact that we will have to have answers to issues that arise. That's one
Mm-hmm.
part of the answer. But I think this question is more aimed at how these technological advancements could impact the functioning of the legal industry itself,
Yeah,
the legal
yeah.
business. So I certainly think that there will be a fair amount of reliance on AI and tools developed from that.
Mm-hmm.
And a very basic example to sort of support what I'm saying is that whereas at the time when we were in law school, everything that we were doing in terms of research was from books. Today, bulk of the research is done online.
Yeah.
So it's a tool that is available. It makes things more convenient. Whether or not it is exhaustive is a different question. But at least certainly it's a tool available that makes things more convenient. If that is the case, and if that's the solution that AI will offer, which I'm reasonably sure it will, then it will certainly impact the industry. To what extent, I really can't forecast. I don't think that we will completely take people as human beings outside the legal business equation, in the sense there will still be people who are lawyers and who are using these tools. So whether or not this technology will be harnessed by humans to achieve what they want, or whether the technology will replace humans, I think it's possibly going to be the former, where we will
Mm-hmm.
harness this technology for our benefit. I don't think we can completely take humans out of the equation, but maybe the dependence on, to a certain extent, on paralegals may diminish. Uh, mm, yeah, I think that possibly will be what it is.
Yes, because for example, there's a company called Kira Systems, which I read about, based out of the United States, I think, and they have started automating writing legal drafts. The entire process of drafting is being taken care by the AI, and senior counsels are just curating what that particular draft is, and then settling those drafts, and those are being filed. So I know India is a lot of
Yeah, so as I said, at the end of the day, there will be someone needed to curate and to finally, give their, because at the end of the day, we as lawyers are also regulated, right, by respective bar councils or whatever
Mhm,
requirements, and there are liability issues for something that's passing our desk,
mhm,
even if it is passing our computers, and we're just pressing the button saying yes, this is good to go. We are taking that liability for having read a brief and saying that this is fine. So if that's the case, then we can't completely take the human element out of the equation. Yes, the amount of time that you're investing in doing something may get diminished, but let's assume that I get a brief on my table which is done completely by an AI, and let's assume we are 10 years hence, where we are
yeah.
more comfortable with that entire concept and we have seen the performance of AI. Even there, if I'm a meticulous lawyer, I will want to test the veracity of, let's say, citations, whether the judgments actually say what the brief is saying that they
Mm-hmm.
say, or is it just an interpretation? So you can't possibly take, and maybe the the associate time is getting compressed by this particular AI usage, but the partner will also not spend that much of time in verifying all of this. He will want a human being who he or she trusts, having trained them, that they will give them an answer
Mm-hmm.
which has been checked, and then a high level sort of checking is done by the partner. So I don't think you will be able to take human element out completely of the equation.
Mm. Okay.
At least I hope not.
No, we don't. Okay, so penultimate question. What does a student of law need to do in order to be hired by TMT Law?
Mm, one, that student of law should have the fundamentals in place, and even though they may not be able to rattle off citations and judgments at the back of their hand and just on a question, the fundamental understanding of the law should definitely be there.
Mm.
Very basic contractual principles of, what's an indemnity, what's a warranty, and if you're saying that you've done internships, let's say in an office that has done IP or trademark work, then what's the difference between passing off and infringement? So very, very basic
Mm.
questions like that should be they should be able to answer. Two, they should be in a position to write well,
Okay.
because as a lawyer, your expression is either by through writing or by speaking. So the writing, increasingly, your briefs, your planes, your drafting is being looked at and scrutinized a little more by courts than what used to be done earlier.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So therefore, your writing skills have to be very strong. And thereafter, as I said, it's intuition.
Mm. Mm. Okay. Okay. And is TMT hiring now, right now? Because
No,
I'm
we're
gonna.
always on the lookout. Yeah, we don't know. We're always on the lookout for good talent, no doubt about it. But so right now, let's say this is end of January. We will possibly be now looking at this in April, March, April, May, that kind of a thing. For a lot of people that we take our decisions to hire, at least at the, like fresh graduates, are those who have interned with us
Okay.
and
Okay.
have expressed an interest, and of course, of who we have also found to be to capable be capable to join us, sort of thing. And then we test them through a process of uh, an extended internship program where they would be with us for not just that 1 month which is required by the law school,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe a 3-4 month period where we're assessing them as an assessment internship, and then that converts into a job largely.
So, okay, so just with your permission, can I speak to Mamta and put in plugins in the description, as in
Yeah,
how
sure.
students can, intern at your
Yeah,
firm?
sure. Sure. We have a process that we have on the website itself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a link for the HR and working with us, etc. And one people can go and put in their interests there, both for an
Fine, fine.
internship and for this thing. So therefore, that can be done.
And so I'll leave all of these links that we're talking about
Sure.
in the description below. All right. Last question before you go. So, Mr. Abhishek Malhotra, what is your message or your commandment to all of us? What is that one last impression or one thing that you would want one student of law looking at this particular interview to take away from you?
Apart from the skills that I talked about in terms of getting your fundamental rights and writing well, I think I also mentioned that it's extremely important to be confident of your capabilities, um, and uh, and and not fear failure.
Hmm.
And as
Okay.
an underlying proposition, you will face a lot of adversity, things you're not expecting. um, you have to think on your feet. All that is there and it plays. But I think what I also try and tell people is patience and happiness. Both things are extremely important.
So be happy and patient.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Malhotra, for giving us your time. I hope everybody who has watched this video has learned or taken away some things which might be of value to them. If you've liked this video, you can subscribe our YouTube channel and also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We will shortly open up our Twitter handle, and I will leave links to Mr. Malhotra, everything that I can find on the internet, and the internship methods and how to get in touch with TMT law practice in the description box below. Do leave us your comments and please share this video. See you in the next one. Thank you, Mr. Malhotra.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.